I'm looking forward to seeing everyone at Clean Sweep on Saturday. I know I'm plugging that before the meeting starts. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
We are live.
All right, then I'm going to call the Finance Committee to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Sure. Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Patterson,
Here.
Councilmember Smith, Vice President Lupian.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with introductory number 146, authorizing a professional services agreement related to the 2022 Rock Pride Festival. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved,
Second.
seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 147, authorizing an agreement for the 2022 Rock Jam Live Music Series. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 148, authorizing an agreement for firework displays. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 149, authorizing an agreement for the Gus Macker 3-on-3 tournament. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 150, authorizing an agreement with the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra for public music performances. I'll just take a quick moment here to offer a thought. In previous years, the council has approved dollars that the RPO does a central concert as well as some neighborhood-based concerts. And I know that in the transmittal, it's not as specific in years past about where those neighborhood concerts will be, but there will in fact be neighborhood-based concerts again this year with this contract. I'm wondering if anyone from the administration can share, are those going to happen July, August timeframe roughly?
Let me see, Mr. Chairman, is Barbara Pierce, you or Kara want to answer that? Do we know the answer to that? I see Kara's on.
Yes, I'll defer that to Kara.
Kara?
Hello, all four will be in July, the neighborhood concerts. And we're actually just confirming the rain locations right now. So as soon as we have that information, I will gladly share them with council so you guys can help us promote. That would be wonderful.
Wonderful. It's a really great event to be able to bring the RPO into neighborhoods. So look forward to that. Any questions, comments, or concerns on 150? If not, I'll take a motion, please.
Move it.
It's been moved. I need a second.
Second.
And seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 151, authorizing an agreement for the 2022 Puerto Rican Festival. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved. Seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Pardon me. Introductory number 152, local improvement ordinance establishing the operating and maintenance costs of neighborhood commercial and residential parking areas for 2022-23. A public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the May 5th, 2022 committee's meeting. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved. Is that a second?
Yes.
And seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Thank you. Introductory number 153, authorizing an intermunicipal agreement amending the 2021-22 budget and amending an agreement to enhance the community's racial and structural equity race initiatives. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved,
Second.
seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 154, authorizing an agreement for budget software. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 155, a resolution approving appointments to the Rochester Civil Service Commission. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion. It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 156, a bond ordinance of the city of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $30 million general obligation funding serial bonds, 2022 of said city, to currently refund the outstanding portions of the city $14,655,000 refunding bonds, 2012, Series 4, $19,390,000 refunding bonds, 2012, Series 5, $29,150,000 general obligation serial bonds, 2013 Series 1, and $67,470,000 general obligation serial bonds, 2013 Series 2. That was a mouthful, but I will now open it up for any questions, comments, or concerns.
Move it.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 157, authorizing the apportionment of taxes and charges. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 158, authorizing an agreement for real estate title services. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move.
Been moved. Could I use a second, please?
Second.
And seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 159, authorizing an agreement for conflict counsel services. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Move it.
Not. Go ahead.
No, I'm approving it.
Moved.
Moved.
I need a second, and it's been seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 178, authorizing an agreement related to refueling of city vehicles. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
It's been moved,
Second.
seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introductory number 179, authorizing an intermunicipal agreement with the County of Monroe to provide chilled water services for the Blue Cross Arena at the War Memorial. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I will take a motion.
Move it.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Introduction number 181, determining and certifying base proportions, current percentages, and base percentages for the 2022 assessment roll. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll
Move it.
take a motion. It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
And finally, introduction number 182, determining and certifying adjusted base proportions, assessed value, and net changes in assessed value for the 2022 assessment roll. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I will take motion.
So
Move
moved.
it.
Been
Clerk
moved
will
and
enter-
seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
And that concludes the work of the Finance Committee. Thank you.
I'm going to say this, and I only mean it as a joke. Who's the joker who moved my committee meeting to 4:20?
It's a very good question, Mike.
7-minute wait.
Yeah.
We got 7.
We'll survive. At this time, I call the Neighborhood and Business Development Committee to order, and I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Sure. Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Vice President Lupian.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, well, we have a really short agenda for NBD this month, but it is fabulous. I do say so myself, and I commend the administration and Commissioner Miller for the work that his staff did this month. So introductory number 160, the Taylor Square mixed use project. There was a significant number of questions by council members. We have Mr. Brent Garwood here and his staff. Instead of having Mr. Garwood make a presentation, I would ask council members who have questions to ask your questions, and he can give you a response. So do we have any questions, comments, or concerns on introductory number 160?
I only have one question, and forgive me if this was already answered.
Council Vice President Lupian.
Thank you. When it says construction/permanent loan, I'm unsure what that means.
I can answer that if you like. Okay, sure. So that means that the funding will be available during construction as a construction loan. So we'll have about a 3-year construction period, and then it'll convert to a permanent loan, which is the 30-year loan with the 1% interest. So
Got it.
basically just means you help with our construction sources as well.
Thank you.
Are there any comment? I'm sorry, who was that? Council, yes, Council President Melendez.
Yes, I just want to express to the administration and also to home leasing that this is a very exciting project. You know, keeping a business in our community for the long term, as well as providing high quality, affordable housing is a win-win in our community. And we're very thankful to see this project come forward.
Okay. Council Member Gruber, any questions? Any additional questions?
They were all answered very well during the agenda review. Appreciate it.
Okay. Councilmember Martin, any other additional questions?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right.
I guess Chair Patterson, I will say one more thing. Let me come back on video for a second. The only other thing I would like to say is the packet of information that came in agenda review was just wonderful, with so much information and so much clarity. And I just want to say to the administration, I understand there's a balance somewhere, but it would be nice to get some of that stuff earlier than just before the committee meeting for this. Because I think that, you know, clearly this has been a project that's been worked on for a long time. That's evident. And obviously the transmittal was what showed the excitement of it. But I think giving us some of that information earlier would have been beneficial.
Noted, and we will definitely work to improve that.
Council member Gruber, the other thing is, you know, we have on a regular basis had the opportunity to have work sessions with council, and for you know, very complex items like these, we will certainly work to make sure that there's an opportunity for a work session, because there, you know, for something like this with so many details and so many numbers, it's always helpful to have an opportunity to have an actual discussion as opposed to just providing more stuff in writing. So we'll certainly work on that, make sure that when we have these big items that we have the opportunity to sit down with you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And again, fully supportive of the project. Appreciate all the hard work that went into it.
Okay, so at this time, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice President Lupian, seconded by Councilmember Harris. And now we vote. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
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 All opposed to the item, please say nay. Introductory passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
All right, introductory number 161, I will be holding until Tuesday. We've just got some language we need to tighten up regarding the lottery for this program. I am fully in support of what we're doing and what we're trying to do here, and I would be surprised if every other council member wasn't. But I do believe that we are kind of committed to maintaining the lottery element of this, and we want to see that added to the legislation. So I'm sure we'll have that language by Tuesday, and we can vote it out on Tuesday and get it voted out and get it done. And that's what we'll do. Any other questions, comments, or concerns from anyone else? All right, so that's 161. The same applies to 162. Any other questions, comments from any other council members? Okay, and now we move on to introductory number 163, authorizing a 2021 annual action plan to fund and authorize additional home investment partnership projects through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the May 5th committee's meeting. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I need a motion in a second.
Move it.
Move. Second.
And now we vote on the item. All in favor of the item, please say aye.
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 All opposed to the item, please say nay. Introductory passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 4-0 into the record.
Before I adjourn, I failed to read introductory number 160 properly, so I'm going to do that again at this time. Authorizing a $2,300,000 loan agreement to finance affordable housing for the Taylor Square mixed-use project. I need a referee rule in there. Do we need to vote on that again, Corporation Counsel, or are we okay?
I think we can record it as a technical correction.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, that is all that we have before us. Well, wait a minute. No. Wait. Sorry.
No, yeah, 180.
Number 180.
I forgot. I had to flip the page. The agenda doesn't seem to be correct, but here we go. I've got it. So here we go. Introductory number 180. 2021 American Rescue Plan Act funding, sale of real estate and agreement, Greater Rochester Housing Partnership by the Block Project. Yeah, I'm a real fan of this one. I just want to commend the administration, everybody who worked on this. This is fabulous work. Any other questions, comments, concerns from any other council members on this introductory?
Councilor Patterson. I will be recusing myself from deliberations and the vote.
Right.
As an employee of Ibero.
Fair enough. Any other questions, comments, or concerns on this introductory? Seeing none, we need a motion in a second.
Move.
Moved by Councilmember Harris, seconded by Vice President Lupien. And now we vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please abstain. Okay. Council President Melendez abstained. All opposed, please say nay. Introductory passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 301 into the record with President Melendez abstaining.
With there being nothing else before us, that concludes the work of the Neighborhood and Business Development Committee. Thank you.
At this time, I'm calling the Parks and Public Works Committee to order, and I ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Here, Councilmember Pio,
Here.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot.
Here.
Vice President Lupien.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Introductory number 164, appropriating funds and authorizing an agreement for the North Goodman Street Reconstruction Project. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Comment.
Yes, Councilmember Patterson.
On a council meeting. Okay.
Thank you for fixing North Goodman Street. All of the ratty, rough parts of it, we greatly appreciate it. And our teeth won't rattle when we go down it anymore.
I concur.
Councilmember Patterson, I remember you talking about North Goodman Street last year. So there you go.
I believe I remember him talking about it like 4 years ago. So we appreciate it greatly. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 165, authorizing an agreement related to the St. Bernard's Trail Rehabilitation Project. Questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Thank you. Introductory number 166, bond ordinance of the city of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $211,000 bonds of said city to finance the 2022 annual parking garage repair and reconstruction project. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 167, amending ordinance number 2021-154 in relation to resident project representation services for annual parking garage evaluation and repair projects. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
Move it. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 168, authorizing term agreements for environmental site assessment and remedial services. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Quick thing for me, I did receive the email from Ann Spalding. I appreciate that. That broke down the number of projects performed by each consultant. I'm going to forward that to City Council as well. It does show that probably 3 organizations get quite a bit of our city attention, which is perfectly fine. Hopefully we can increase the other ones that are locally here as well, so we can spread the love. I appreciate that. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? If not, can I have if not, I'll take a motion.
Move it.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 169, authorizing agreement and funding for the Green Innovation Grant Program Water Meter Replacement Project. Councilmember Gruber, I believe you had a question regarding if it was only city meters that we were replacing. I'm not quite sure that answer was specifically addressed. I know they responded to it, but I don't think it said it was specifically for city meters. Am I correct?
No, the answer, I'm satisfied with the answer.
Okay, good. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right, if not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 170, resolution affirming the appropriation of New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation funds and a city match for a Green Innovation Grant Program grants for the City of Rochester Water Meter Replacement Project. Questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 171, local improvement ordinance, establishing the cost of the special work and services related to Main Street improvements of the Downtown Enhancement District for 2022-23. The public hearing to be held at 5 p.m. after the May 5th committee meetings, so this evening. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. May I, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 172, local improvement ordinance establishing the operating and maintenance costs of special assessments for streetscape enhancements for 2022-23. Public hearings will be held right after our committee meetings this evening at 5 p.m. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Without anything else, I call this meeting adjourned for the Parks and Public Works Committee. I appreciate you, Clerk Hazel Washington, as always.
You're welcome, sir.
At this time, I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee to order, and the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember, let's see, Vice President Lupian,
Here.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot. Sorry, Councilmember Lightfoot here?
Yes, ma'am, here.
Okay, Councilmember Martin,
Here.
Councilmember Patterson. Oh, I see you. Councilmember Pio,
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. And of course, our chair, President Melendez.
Present. So introductory number 173, the bond ordinance of the city of Rochester, New York, authorizing the issuance of $1,300,000 bonds of said city to finance the acquisition of 30 police patrol vehicles. Before we open it up for questions, comments, and concerns, I just want to make a request of the administration, which is, could we get a better sense of an understanding of what the long-range plan for the potential of electric vehicles, or I know that there's a lot more to it than just purchasing vehicles. We got to have the infrastructure. So is there any, maybe Mayor Evans, is there any comments that you can make towards looking into that situation moving forward?
Yes, eventually we would like to be electric. I'm a big electric guy. I think we can get there, but we got a lot of infrastructure we have to build, including charging stations and getting our arms around. I talked about this in leadership yesterday with Council Vice President and Council President. Making sure that we're ready for the infrastructure, that we'll build up with the infrastructure to not just for police cars, but for all of our fleet, eventually switching over to electric. But we got a lot of infrastructure to build. And we talked about in the future putting together a work session to talk about our plans in general around green technology and in particular being able to switch to electric long term. So, but we have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built up before we get to that point. But I believe that we will be able to get there in the next couple of years.
Any additional questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, I do.
Councilmember Gruber?
I understand the point that it's going to take some infrastructure to build, but it also feels like a little bit of a chicken and egg situation. There has to be something that's prompting us to build out that infrastructure, and we've already started. And I think the city's come a long way, but I'm troubled by the idea of purchasing vehicles that are not hybrid or electric to add to a fleet. And the question that I asked in agenda review, it came back as though, I'll read from it right now. It says, at this time, EVs are not a viable option. And then at the end, it says, we hope automakers will consider rolling out EV police packages in the near future because we see the world moving in that direction. And we'd like to be on board when that option is viable. But I'm certain that there are plenty of cities that already have EV fleets. Just a quick cursory search, I saw that New York City has EV. I see Spokane, Washington has EV. There's a ton of small cities and small towns that have EV. I just don't know why we don't plant our flag in the ground and say now is the time that we do this.
I'll let Commissioner Perrin jump in a second, but the one thing I will say is we absolutely could buy some electric cars, but the cost would be much higher than I think we would want to spend at this point. We could, Tesla, I'm not advocating this, has some electric vehicles that we could get. But the cost would be much higher. The legislation that's before you would call for a higher cost. If there's an appetite for a higher cost, we do it. But I just think that we would have to weigh the pros and cons of if that's advisable. But the other thing is the charging stations, which is amazing. We don't have charging stations anywhere near the level we need to be at for the city. So public safety building, any of the existing locations where we have substations don't currently have charging stations right now. And for this, you would need, I believe, 2 batteries. But I'll let Commissioner Perrin weigh in on this as well. It would be a much higher cost.
So before you jump in, Commissioner, I just want to add that in many cities across the country and in different state departments, before a purchase like this is made, there is a right size analysis and a fleet analysis to see what vehicles exist, what transitioning to EVs look like, comparative costs with different brands and makes and models, and a negotiating process. With this being presented now, I just don't feel like we have enough time to do such analyses. And to be able to really gauge what investment and infrastructure to have charging vehicles look like, and how that impacts the current fleet. So that's where I'm at, and that's what I'm thinking.
Commissioner.
Yeah, if I may, I'll jump in and just, I would reiterate everything that the mayor said. There is a need to look at this from a holistic perspective, and we have to remember too that as it stands right now with battery technologies in winter, when you have cold winters, those batteries don't last as long. It's one thing when you're, in a more temperate climate like Spokane and even New York City doesn't see the temperatures we do. The last thing you want to have is the need to respond to an emergency from any first responder and find out that the battery is low. A lot of those vehicles are also running regularly. So if we want them to be visible and moving, that's going to have it. But no, I think it's a matter of a comprehensive approach. The other part that we can't forget too is also to look at what we can do to incentivize the private sector to include these in any new developments. You start to see some of them, but if we really want this out there, we've got to have some place where if we needed to, we can make an emergency stop. Just like if for some reason a police vehicle all of a sudden got really low, couldn't get back to Mount Reed, couldn't get to one of our partner facilities, where could they go to fuel up? So there's a lot that goes in. It's not just a function of looking at our public side infrastructure. I mean, ultimately, there's no public gas stations around. When you have to do that, you go to a privately held one, whether it's mobile or the like. But no, the mayor's point is the one that we're really working on, is how does this fit into a more comprehensive look at what we want to do. I think the one good part that we have though is that at least as it pertains to passenger and light duty vehicles, there's really been the discussion that we are going to be working off of electric, EV, and hybrid vehicles. For a while there was a lot of talk, would we use some form of CNG, clean natural gas, which in and of itself has some issues. So you want to get to a point where you're using a sustainable technology to the greatest degree possible, and you want that one to be something that's looked at comprehensively. I also think that beyond just the purchase and installation of the vehicles and the infrastructure will also require training for those that are responsible for maintaining the vehicles. So there's going to be that part of it as well, making sure that our equipment services staff and team are trained and able to service these vehicles as needed. Also, just looking at it, something's going to have to happen with us strengthening our supply chain again. We found out obviously during COVID that the whole idea of just-in-time delivery is very fragile. So we're going to have to be looking at where are we getting parts from, and being able to redo that. But there is definitely a cost. If you look at even our existing fleet, it's costly. So we have to figure out, as Councilmember Martin, I think, very astutely pointed out, what is the analysis of the type of vehicles and how do we create that switchover in a way that's cost effective, both makes sense from a cost perspective, but is also effective in serving our residents, businesses, and institutions. So sorry for going on. There's a number of pieces to it though.
So Commissioner and Mayor, I appreciate those answers, but it goes back to me to ultimately the point I made before. Those things are going to be the case if a year from now we want to buy 30 EV. No matter what, at some point there comes a time where we just plant a stake in the ground and say, like, this is the direction that we're moving in. And it's always going to be an issue for building up infrastructure. It's always going to be an issue for training people to deal with new technologies. And to me, this feels like a very good time to do it, in part because we actually have the money. And although, Mayor, I agree with you, it's more money up front. I think we all know, especially with the cost of gas right now and the way the gas is going to be for a long time, this is a cost savings in the long run by buying good electric vehicles. This feels like the right time to do it. We have the money. and we have a climate action plan, and we know where we got to go. So I guess you know where I am at this point. But my question for the administration is, why do we need to buy these vehicles in May? Or can we take a little bit of time to think about that and be able to put together that study? And maybe we end up needing to buy 10 or so, gas powered vehicles because there's an urgent need, but the other 20 we can push back to and we can buy EV. Is there an urgent need at the moment, or can we take a minute to think about this and talk about it collectively?
Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. So because of COVID, we haven't purchased cars in 2 years. So this is the first we've really had a chance. And I'd have to defer to the DCA or even Commissioner Perrin for specific fleet things, because I don't go to the meetings, but I can tell you personally, I'm aware of more than one Impala that simply the structure has rusted out and we've had to take it off the road because it's simply not safe anymore. I know also a lot of the older cars, it's not just a matter of buying the parts, it's the money we put in for maintenance for the service hours. So, just like it reaches a point where you go buy a new personal car because you own a $5,000 car and you don't want to spend $5,000 to fix it. We're in that position now with a lot of the older Impalas. The upkeep is not cost effective.
So Councilmember Pio, followed by Vice President Lupien, and then we'll move forward.
Well, it was kind of addressed, but I want to make sure that we are ahead of the curve, which is, just because you've been working on combustion engines for the past 20 years as a mechanic does not mean you can fix a Tesla. It's not just training. We might have to hire a whole new crew of people that already know how to, fix electric vehicles. So is there something in the pipeline when it comes to job training, all these job training programs that we have that we may be putting together as a city that can gear people towards electric engines and such? Because my lawnmower is battery powered and it's not starting. I can't take it anywhere. No one's willing to fix it. They all say, just buy a new one. Every single one of them said, just go buy a new one. It's not worth fixing. So do we have anything in the pipeline to address that in the future? But I think you kind of hit that on the head, Commissioner Perrin. I'm pretty sure that we'll have to discuss that more.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct, Councilmember Pio. That would be part of the assessment that we do along with the vehicle's useful life, but we have enough of a background to be able to do that. We do. I mean, they've been around for a while. I think the technology will continue to evolve, but it's like anything else. You don't just buy a vehicle and don't do anything to it. You need to change the oil. You need to fill it with gas. You've got to rotate the tires. I mean, there's a whole process. This is something that clearly we would want equipment services to be heavily involved in, but it really should be, if we're going to go in this direction, part of a comprehensive workforce development initiative as well, so that we are looking at this from the standpoint of the same way we're looking at masons, the same way we're looking at other folks that go out on street maintenance that were out there yesterday that can work asphalt, wood, concrete, whatever has to happen. But we would have to look at having our technicians be able to service that.
Commissioner Perrin?
Yes, Chief.
I know, for example, some of these car companies are proprietary too. So isn't it true that Tesla might say, this is our proprietary technology, you have to use our technicians?
I would have to check on that. I'm not prepared to answer that. That's something I would probably look to Scott Corser, who leads our Equipment Services Bureau. But these are all answers we can get. I wasn't, fully prepared on this resolution to get into some of the details of what we would need from just a staffing perspective and what you just mentioned, which is, what the OEM, original equipment manufacturer parts. We're going to have to look into that.
Thank you. Vice President Lupien?
Yeah, I was interested, if, say we purchase these cars, what is the expected length of life before they would be retired? Basically, how long of a commitment are we making?
For the police vehicles, it's pretty interesting because they run near constantly. They can have less mileage. It really comes down to operating hours. I mean, they go from being, I would say, a car to a piece of equipment at this point in time, and they're outfitted as such. to be able to do that. But we can pull that information. A lot of it just depends on as well what happens with the vehicle. I mean, there may be vehicles, and again, there's so many of them. It could just be that there's one that lasts longer than others because it really hasn't been put through the same type of activities. It may not be involved in a lot of higher level. I'm just going to call them activities. The chief probably has a better word than I do for it, but no, this is completely based on how long they run for, not necessarily how many miles we put on them.
Yeah,
And we track all of this.
It would be helpful to understand, kind of an average of how long the cars are in use.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm going to stop my staff from going on and on. We're not prepared to do a presentation right now on our environmental strategy long term. Environmental justice is one of the tenets of the administration. It's something that we're very much interested in. We want to go electric long term, but the purpose of this resolution was the immediate need to buy police cars. So I'll leave it to your wisdom on if you want to hold this and have us get more information. But I'll leave it to your wisdom. But I will tell you that there are consequences to us doing that, because obviously we don't want to have rickety cars that are with the wheels breaking down and rusting out, as the chief mentioned. So there is a need for more cars. I'm not opposed to increasing the amount if we wanted to try some electric cars, but that would add up the cost. But as a numbers guy, I don't know if council's prepared to spend those extra dollars right now, and in particular when we don't have the infrastructure yet built out. So there's a lot of different options here, but it's not fair for my staff to be answering questions right now around our larger strategy, because we didn't come prepared to ask that. We just came prepared specifically for the legislation that's before us. So I'll leave it to you on what you think.
Mayor Evans, I'll let my Councilmember Patterson weigh in, and then we'll have to move this along. So Councilmember Patterson, please.
So just a comment, my son has an electric vehicle. He drives it extensively. The batteries are weather dependent. So that is a definite concern in the winter. When it was, minus whatever or 10 below, you definitely see a difference in your range. Charge times are nothing equivalent to what you would be looking at as opposed to going to a gas station and filling up, depending on how you're charging, where you're charging. If you're at a supercharger, 20 to 30 minutes. If you're at a regular charger, it's significantly longer. So as much as I would love to see us move to an electric fleet, I don't think the product's ready for the work that you would want them to do in a patrol setting. Hybrid is a different animal. There is some greater cost, but you get some significant savings, especially with gas prices. So that's just something to consider. I would hope that council members could get behind voting this one out, that you guys on this committee could get behind voting this one out of committee, because we do need the vehicles. So that part doesn't change, and a plan. And to Council Member Martin's point, she made a great point about what's the fleet analysis, what's the plan, how many more vehicles do we have to buy, what's the life cycle. We've all seen patrol cars out there. They go from 0 to 100 in 10 seconds. Fast acceleration, fast stop. They're driven hard. So it's not, we already know this ain't our car, and they don't drive it like it's their car either. But it is a piece of equipment, and it is used in that manner. So, so I just want to put that out there.
Just real quickly before, I think all of the questions my colleagues are asking can really be adequately answered through a fleet analysis and really understanding why 30 cars, what's going on with the other cars we have, what is our overall plan to increase usage and make sure that we have a proactive plan to getting vehicles. If there is no, even saying like it's urgent right now, in the questions asked and the responses, I don't know that there was a strong enough argument made to prove that urgency. So all I'm asking for is some time for us to really analyze this and understand this and build a holistic plan that I think we're all in agreement of.
So with that being said, I'm going to hold this item at the moment. We'll have some more discussion. I certainly understand the urgency to upgrade our fleet as well. So we'll continue to kick this around. We'll have further discussions, but I will hold this item in committee. With that, introductory number 183, appropriating American Rescue Plan Act funds for the Rochester Peace Collective. Any questions, comments, concerns?
President Melendez, I have a comment.
Councilmember Harris?
I support this legislation, but I did have some pushback from, well, not really pushback, but comments from my constituents who have grave concerns about this amount of money and being doled out or being issued out to agencies without a clear accountability process. So I would urge the administration to please look at this, and also my colleagues on council, for us to look at this and set forth some accountability measures just to make sure that the agencies that get the funding, that they are accountable. There's clear measures and benchmarks that's made so we can, make sure that the money's used the proper way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you, Councilwoman, council member, that you won't see any legislation coming to you that's going to get past me that won't meet those that criteria that you absolutely said, and just not with that, but with any legislation. So I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. The other point I'll make about this too to folks is this is what I call icing on the cake. We have the Office of Neighborhood Safety, we have Pathways to Peace, we have our violence reduction work that we're doing, the Peacemaker Fellowship. So we're going to be doing all of that work, and this is just to be able to bring in community-based organizations to help us supplement the other work that we're doing, particularly as we get ready to heat up for the summer. So that's the way I've been explaining this to people and what it will do. And any of this, and any of the organizations that will get funds from here, depending on the dollar amount, it will be required to go through council, some of the, any of that legislation. So we'll have the opportunity to do that and have those conversations going forward. But I agree with your comments. We want to make sure that this gets done in a way where there is accountability, but more importantly, that they're having the impact. But the good thing is that this does give a lot of the organizations that are laboring in the vineyard every day, particularly at the grassroots level, an opportunity to access funds to continue that great work and be a part of supporting the work that we're trying to do as we work to reduce violence in the community.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I want to echo your remarks that I do agree with that supports those grassroots organizations, and they've been working out here for a long time, and I support that. Just want to make sure there's some accountability so that we can report back to our constituents, where the money went and, what was the results.
Any additional questions or comments, concerns?
Question real quick.
Councilmember Patterson.
So in one of our meetings as council members, it was mentioned, I mentioned that maybe we should look at using some dollars to support some of our non-city sponsored rec programs. Are these dollars that those agencies may well be able to apply for towards that purpose?
Absolutely.
So like Hispanic Youth Baseball or any of the other baseball leagues or any of the Pop Warner football leagues, I'm going through everybody, or all the soccer leagues, or anybody running a summer camp this summer.
All that stuff you're mentioning, and I tell people all the time, all those things are violence reduction programs. You keep a kid busy running up and down, they so doggone tired when they get home, they don't want to get in trouble. And people don't realize that those are some of the best violence reduction programs, arts programs, all those things that we wouldn't think about. Anything that puts youth or adults with that opportunity. I mean, obviously it would have to be evaluated through a lens, and there's only a finite amount of money, but yes, those are all the types of programs that absolutely could access these types of funds. And that's why I call it icing on the cake.
So let me just finish the list. So that would be all the cheerleading squads, all the basketball teams.
Well, Mike, you're trying to inundate us with everyone, but to your point, it's meant to be able to help a broader group of folks who normally wouldn't have access to those types of funds.
What about the church basketball league? Can they come through too?
I don't know about that, Mike, but
the band club.
Right. We just ran out of money from all the lists that you mentioned.
Hey, well, we gonna spend it. Let's spread it out.
With that, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
Move to adopt.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 8-0 into the record.
All right, and at this time, I want to note that we have an item held in committee, introductory number 113, and that was authorizing an agreement for bail credit card services. We made several efforts to reduce the rate at which we would pass on to our constituents. We tried to use some internal processes that we already had existing, internal vendors or vendors that we've been working with. And that didn't fly, unfortunately, but we were able to negotiate a lower rate from 7%, and it's down to 5%. And I want to thank Councilmember Martin for pushing us to really look at that. So at this time, I'd like to do a couple things. We need to discharge it from committee as well as amend it and then vote it to our general meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to discharge from committee.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Right? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. And at this time, Councilmember Martin, do you have a motion to amend this?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend intro 113 to reduce the charge to cardholders for all transactions from 7% to 5%.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of amending introductory number 113, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 8-0 on the amendment.
And now we'll vote on introductory number 113 as amended, which is legislation authorizing an agreement with All Paid Inc. bail credit card services for bail posted for individuals in police custody. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 8-0 on introductory 113 as amended into the record.
Thank you, Clerk Washington. And with that, the Public Safety Committee is adjourned.
Okay. Good afternoon. I call to order the Recreation and Human Service Committee. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Vice President Lupian.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
Introductory number 175, authorizing the agreement related to a tag engraving kiosk for the Rochester Animal Services. Any questions, comments, and concerns? I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then motion passes. Introductory number 176,
Councilmember
offering.
Harris.
Oh,
If I
yes,
may.
I'm sorry.
Will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Introductory number 176, authorizing professional service agreement relating to the Rochester Animal Service Master Plan. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Introductory number 177, authorizing a mandatory professional services agreement for the design and installation of murals at the Rock City Skate Park. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I need a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion passes.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 5-0 into the record.
Well, that concludes the Recreation and Human Service Committee, and thank you very much.
Okay, we will now move into our public hearings. The meeting will come to order and the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Present.
Councilmember Lightfoot.
Present, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Pio.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Vice President Lupian.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us tonight for the public hearings. The hearings will be broadcast live on City Council's YouTube page, as well as on City Channel 12. Due to the state Senate bill signed into law by Governor Hochul and the increased COVID-19 cases in our region, City Council is not conducting in-person meetings. In an effort to provide individuals with increased access to public hearings, we have provided the public with 2 ways to participate tonight. Individuals were able to send comments in writing via mail or directly to the council email. We will now begin the public hearings.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Local improvement ordinance establishing the operating and maintenance costs of neighborhood commercial and residential parking areas for 2022-23. Introductory number 152. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard. There are no speakers.
Very well. Hearing none, this hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Amending the 2021-22 annual action plan to fund and authorize additional home investment partnership projects through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Introductory number 163. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Hello, this is Eric Frisch, Deputy Commissioner, Neighborhood and Business Development. I am here to read comments that were received online. First comment from Ryan Acuff. The proposed amendment are general enough that it's unclear what it is for. I strongly recommend that the city create and fund a tenant purchase assistance program and fund its emergency repair program that is currently out of funds. Comment number 2 from Peter W. Peters. Given the paucity of very low income, safe, affordable, and supportive housing, I would suggest that the city explore ways to create such housing units by collaborating with not-for-profit organizations that are in a position to offer support services. Why not use the money to remodel a hotel to house men and women who experience chronic homelessness for transitional housing? Comment number 3 from Laura Feltz. The emergency repair program in the city of Rochester has no funding and must be fully funded using funds from this to get it started again. And then sustainable funding needs to be allocated going forward. A tenant purchase assistance program also needs to be created in the city of Rochester and funded with these funds as a startup, and then permanent sustainable funds must go to it after the startup funds run out. Comment number 5 from Riti Singh. Allocate at least $1 million to the emergency repair program so that tenants living in dangerous slum conditions can get repairs. All of our people deserve safe and stable housing. Allocate $3 million to the tenant purchase assistance program so that tenants can purchase their own buildings instead of out-of-town slumlords. We deserve basic control over our living situations. We should be able to purchase our homes instead of paying a slumlord's mortgage and increasing his profit. Comment number 6, and this is a lengthy one, from Bonnie Canan of the Northeast Neighborhood Community Coalition. The Northeast neighborhood community participated in developing a development plan to meet the needs of our neighbors in the Northeast area of the city. The plan consisted of many of the both desires and needs of our area. We urged the city to use this document, which we had spent both energy, commitment, and time to ensure our voice was not just heard, but was included in all decision-making. When the city master plan began, we pushed hard to advocate that our plans stand as the specific goals of the master plan, rather than developing a separate one, as we felt the one we did could serve to meet the needs as we saw them. The proposal to follow regarding HUD funds is consistent and imaginative in meeting the intent of that effort. Proposal. We recognize that a house or housing is not the real target, but supporting homes is. Our neighborhood has houses that are 100 years old, as are many in Rochester. While they were built to be very sturdy, nothing lasts 100 years without wear and tear. We have been told that 40% of the housing, primarily in this low-income area, has defined repairs but little wealth. So what do? There is a former paint decorative store in the area. This store is on a major corner and has a lot of space. It is only being used partially at the present. Any older manufacturing buildings in the area could serve to be the location to meet the needs for repairing the single homes. Our plan would be to use such spaces to develop cooperatives to do a range of repairs that are desperately needed. The repairs could include the many small and middle range of repair tasks that require workers who could do this. There is a range of needs from helping elder neighbors with not only with repairs, but moving heavy items, which they often cannot do. Some of the furnishings no longer needed could also be recycled rather than being thrown away. The current businesses that sometimes do these activities function on a national level and recently have been questioned as to some of their practices. A co-op with workers who have the skills and others who could learn the skills would operate the co-op as a self-directed collective. There could also be legal services related to housing and repairs to avoid the dishonest person who can take advantage of neighbors. In addition, we recently learned that the Landmark Society has begun a learning opportunity being done at Geneseo to begin to teach those interested in doing construction and repair skills. One of the most appealing factors is that the co-op model would be part of the neighborhood and be located in it. Neighbors needing these skills for repairs, etc., and those working at the co-op would also feel part of the community rather than distant from it. In keeping with the importance of having a home and not just a house, the service this could provide would go a long way in maintaining more residents in their homes and part of the community. During the coronavirus, much was made of the health threats that can take over when the place someone lives is overcrowded and susceptible for illness.
Eric, that's 3 minutes. We need to move to the next one.
Okay. Next comment received was from Lisa Reagan. During the HUD home art presentation this week, I put a comment in the Q&A Wednesday that had to do with a gap, number 4, in the proposed home art plan for the city of Rochester. I'd like to have an opportunity to amplify the comment, which was difficult to explain in the limited space of the Zoom meeting Q&A. I believe the plan's identification of characteristics of housing associated with instability and an increased risk of homelessness had a gap when it came to seniors, and specifically seniors with age-related disabilities. First, I'm concerned that the definitions of homelessness and at-risk homelessness continues to structurally undercount seniors. The definition as applied continues to evaluate populations like seniors and seniors with age-related disabilities in the same way as an able adult. A person is not considered homeless if they will not admit that they have no one with whom they can stay. Seniors tend to be too embarrassed to acknowledge that they do not have family to help them. Also, seniors and seniors with disabilities cannot couch surf and be safe or safely be housed in shelters even if they did acknowledge homelessness. So this definition criteria undercounts this population and discounts the impact on this community of homelessness risk for seniors, while we also have one of the oldest populations in the state. This is particularly true now during the COVID pandemic and after, when many will avoid at all costs going to nursing homes even if they could afford it. Common Ground Health accounted for the disconnect between the known census population of seniors in Rochester and the reports of housing providers of known senior housing units by deducing that seniors of color in the Rochester area live primarily within multi-generational homes with family. These homes may be culturally supportive, but are not always safe for seniors because the 19th century housing stock of Rochester does not have bedrooms or bathrooms on the ground floor and family may not be able to provide consistent support because of overlapping and changing work schedules. This population needs a special assessment. If investigated, it would be clear that this Rochester population of seniors and seniors with age-related disabilities needs additional resources to not become homeless and special solutions in housing provision. The seniors of color have even less income and higher housing cost burden than their white peers, who are also significantly at risk in Rochester. Seniors of color suffer the effects of discrimination and lack of legally required accommodation in their housing searches. And all seniors have difficulty advocating effectively for themselves for cultural and historic reasons. This is particularly true in the internet-based and alienating housing rental system and resource provision environment. Seniors can benefit from case management, both to prevent homelessness and to find housing if homeless. But that is insufficient because both of these tasks are more difficult for seniors due to cell phone and internet communication deficits, and different housing solutions are needed. Avoiding high rises with which they are unfamiliar and which are dangerous to them when there is a fire that requires tenants to walk down multiple stories. They need housing in their own neighborhoods. They need trusted support at a very vulnerable and humiliating time for seniors. Seniors are particularly sensitive to disconnection from family. Okay, and last comment is from the Rochester Housing Coalition. Home ARC team, I'd like to submit our housing incentive grant outline for consideration for some of this funding. This is just a draft and requires further discussion, but we firmly believe that by partnering with private owners, we can help activate housing units that would be otherwise difficult to bring online. Please let me know if you would like to discuss further. Thank you. And they provided some attachments. That is all.
Thank you for sharing those comments. This hearing is now closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Local improvement ordinance establishing the cost of the special work and services related to Main Street improvements of the Downtown Enhancement District for 2022-23. Introductory number 171. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Hearing none, this hearing is closed.
Pursuant to law, public hearing will now be had on the following matter. Local improvement ordinance establishing the operating and maintenance cost of special assessments for streetscape enhancements for 2022-23. Introductory number 172. Any persons desiring to speak in reference to said matter will now be heard.
Hearing none, this hearing is closed.
That's the last hearing, President Melendez.
Thank you, Clerk Washington. So that concludes our public hearings tonight. The legislation for these hearings will be voted on at our City Council meeting on Tuesday, May 10th at 7:30 p.m., which will also be live streamed on our YouTube channel as well as on City Channel 12. We will now begin the special City Council meeting. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we are meeting to approve an appointment to the Police Accountability Board. The special meeting will come to order and the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Gruber,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Lightfoot,
Present, ma'am.
Councilmember Martin,
Present.
Councilmember Patterson, Councilmember Peel, I see you. Councilmember Peel,
Here.
Councilmember Smith, Vice President Lupien.
Here.
President Melendez.
Here.
Thank you.
I ask the council and everyone joining us to please join me in a moment of silence. Councilmember Lightfoot, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Introductory number 184 is a resolution approving the appointment of Mr. Lawrence A. Knox Jr. to the Northeast seat of the Police Accountability Board. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Clerk will enter the affirmative vote of 8-0 into the record.
With that, we have concluded the business of the special meeting and we are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.